Adequate notice of this meeting being held this 15th day of January 2026 at 7:30 p.m. has been provided in accordance with Section 3D of Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Sunshine Law. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
York.
Here.
Nelson. Here. Lindsay. I think he's
Here.
Here, but
Yeah.
he might. Cotton.
Here.
And Mr. Coletti. He's not here. O'Brien.
Here.
Mooney. Here. Irene Battaglia. It's here. Awesome.
Thank you. No for public comment on the agenda.
I make a motion to open public comment to the agenda.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any comments on the agenda? Motion to close.
Make a motion.
Aye. Second. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
A motion to adopt resolution 2026-22, authorizing the CFO to pay regular bills in order to avoid finance charges.
I make a motion to adopt that resolution.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. A motion to adopt resolution 2026-23, authorizing the refund of 2025 tax overpayment for block 4302, lot 4901.
I make a motion to approve that.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
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 I have a motion to pay all bills in the amount of $214,092.35.
I make a motion to pay the bills in that amount.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Coletti is not here. Cotton.
Yes.
Lindsay.
Yes.
Lindsay.
Yes.
Nelson. Yes. York.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we would like to welcome visitors from the New Jersey Water Supply Authority, Kathy Hale and Ryan Jurley. Appreciate you joining us this evening.
Thank you for having us. Ryan's gonna start us off. Thank you.
Where would you like me to stand?
If it's right, like in front of the owl is the best, and it does track, that's the microphone picks up the recording.
I asked you to take a picture when you were in the, and I can then. All right. Do it.
All right, so we're here to talk about the watershed restoration protection plan for the Spruce Run, Mohawkaway Creek watersheds. More generally speaking, the entire watershed area that feeds into the Spruce Run reservoir. So moving to the second slide, I'm just going to go over some highlights of who we are, just in the event that some are not familiar. The New Jersey Water Supply Authority is an independent state authority created in 1981 to operate and maintain water supply systems that are owned by the state. So that's 3 reservoirs and the DNR Canal. The one that probably most relevant to everyone here would be Spruce Run Reservoir. So our main role is managing the infrastructure related to these water supply systems, such as dams, pump houses, things like that. And the service that the authority is providing is raw water to water purveyors, so private municipal water utilities that then treat the water and distribute it to their clients. So that's kind of the output end. But in 1999, the authority created the Watershed Protection Unit, which is what Kathy and I are part of, with the goal to maintain and improve water quality so that the water that's coming into these systems is as best as possible, and it makes everything downstream just easier. So moving on to that third slide, The reason we're focusing on Spruce Run Reservoir is because it's at the top of what we call our Raritan Basin system. So everything that flows down, the south side of the Musconetcong Mountain here is going into Spruce Run. Some of that goes into the Raritan, pumped into Round Valley Reservoir and down through the Raritan where it gets pulled out by the purveyors. So there have been projects in the past to address water quality and land use in an attempt to restore some of these water quality attributes. But as of today, there has yet to be a more comprehensive plan looking at the entire watershed. And the reason we care about that now is this persistent harmful algal bloom that's plagued Spruce Run since, probably 2018 or 2019. We know that it's at least partially influenced by what's going on, uphill of the reservoir and the landscape. Some more localized factors that may be contributing to it, but it's still a 27,000 acre area. So what's more than likely is that there's a little bit going on here, a little bit going on there, a bunch of smaller contributions that are collectively having an impact on the reservoir. That next slide, you'll see the map and the table of the different municipalities, just to show you that most of the watershed does fall within Lebanon Township, Union Township, and to a little bit lesser extent, Bethlehem Township here. And the reason that we're putting this plan together, the state has what they call designated uses for all the water bodies in New Jersey. In other words, what do we want to be able to expect from our waters? And in this case, we have public water supply, we have aquatic habitat. We want to be able to maintain the conditions that support life in our rivers, primary recreation, which is the type of recreation where you're actually coming into contact with the water. And the last one being fish consumption. So part of what influences those designated uses and whether they're being met is water quality standards, which are just variables of interest relating to the environment. And some of those thresholds for our watersheds here that have been exceeded, the water temperature is a little high for trout. We have excess levels of E. coli bacteria, higher turbidity, which is just the cloudiness of the water, and the pH not being in that nice neutral range. So we know that at least some of these factors would be influencing the harmful algal blooms. And the goal of this plan is to discover, maybe develop a more holistic understanding of what might be causing all this. And then we can kind of plan what we want to do about it. So Kathy's going to come and talk about the kind of the history of what we've done up to this point and then where we want to go from here.
Thanks, Ryan. And I'm not going to spend really much time on the history. Some of you have actually, I know, been involved in a lot of the different projects that we've done in the Spruce Run and Mahakaway Creek watersheds over the past 20 to 25 years. We've worked closely with the municipalities in the watershed. And Ryan mentioned the three municipalities that really make up about 85 to 90% of the watershed, maybe even a little bit more. Now, the watershed is mostly forested, followed by a fair amount of urban land and agricultural land. And honestly, those are the uses that agriculture is really the biggest contributor to non-point source loads, such as phosphorus, nitrogen, sediment, and then also bacteria. US EPA has a framework for what they call a 9 minimum element watershed restoration and protection plan. And you'll see on slide 8, kind of a modified structure for that. The 9 elements I feel don't flow really well. So we've changed it into a graphic that really just shows the 6 basic steps. And that's identifying the sources of pollution, estimating the amount of those pollutants, and then recommending actions to mitigate those sources of pollutants, moving into implementation, also doing education and outreach in the watershed, and then monitoring our progress. So in New Jersey, there are around 20 plans that have been approved by the DEP at this point. In New Jersey, they are especially important because towns will be able to pull projects out of those plans for your watershed improvement plans that'll be due to the DEP as part of your municipal stormwater planning. There are other plans happening in the Raritan Highlands at this point. Also, the Highlands Council funded Rutgers Cooperative Extension, Raritan Headwaters, and the authority to develop plans in portions of the North Branch Raritan, South Branch Raritan, and Lamington River watersheds as well. As you'll see on slide 9, part of the plan included a characterization of the watershed. And that includes a lot of the different environmental conditions in the watershed, just so that you know that that's kind of out there. So as I mentioned, our pollutant sources really are agriculture, urban land, stormwater, septic systems, and wildlife. And we identified these sources in a variety of ways. We did stream visual assessments. We've done riparian buffer needs assessment, and then also we modeled the pollutant loads. We've also looked at the stormwater infrastructure, and I'll be interested to see your watershed inventory report once that's available for review to see how that lines up with what we've identified as well. I think the really important thing is potential projects. What are we going to be looking at in order to mitigate these pollutant sources, and then also to help try and restore areas where we have seen problems in the watershed. Implementation is, I think, a lot of fun, although it can be very frustrating. We have, I have one set of projects that I'll be honest, it took us 20 years to get them from when we started planning to when they actually went in the ground. I'm hoping things will move much more quickly up here. But things that we can look at include stream management, so repairing buffer improvements, channel stabilizations, land preservation and stewardship, stormwater management, septic system management, agricultural practices, and education and outreach to go along with all of this. Some of you may be familiar with the stream restoration project that we did in Hoffman Park. I shudder to say it's 19 years ago now. It was actually on the Union Township side of the park, right over off of Mecklen's Corner. But that's an example of a pretty extreme and involved project that we've done. Just upstream of the park, there have been some agricultural practices installed and some riparian buffer improvements that have been done also. Stream corridor improvement projects, I think, are going to be important. So we did windshield reconnaissance of areas that we felt would be good for riparian buffer improvements. So planting within the stream corridor, and there are several areas that we've identified within the township. As I mentioned, I think stormwater is going to be important, especially as it lines up with, I skipped land preservation. The authority has done a fair amount of land preservation. There are several properties that we co-own with Bethlehem Township, Union Township, Lebanon Township, and other municipalities with Hunterdon County, and then also the nonprofits. As some of you probably know, we have a set of criteria that we use to identify parcels that are appropriate to preserve for water resources protection. So not for recreation so much, but for the water resources. At this point, we have 39 total owned or co-owned properties at the authority. And we're also looking at stewardship on those properties that are in the watershed. We just did a kind of a revamp of our critical areas criteria that we use to identify those parcels. And that's so we'll be able to provide a list of parcels that we would recommend for preservation to each of the municipalities. Stormwater, next. Some of these pictures, and I know they're small, and we can provide this presentation in PDF too, so you can see some of these a little more closely. But we've done projects where we've put in rain gardens, where we've retrofitted stormwater basins. We've put in what are called filtera units, which go adjacent to existing stormwater in order to filter out sediment. So there are a lot of different things that we can do to improve the quality of stormwater. And as I said too, these are projects that are great to put into your municipal, your watershed improvement plan that you'll be doing. One of the things that we did as part of this plan, and I neglected to mention before, we did work with Rutgers Cooperative Extension, the Water Resources Program, on this plan. So we've identified potential green infrastructure sites. So sites where we can do small scale projects. Green infrastructure typically tries to see stormwater as a resource rather than as a problem. And these are smaller projects where we use more natural engineering. And there are several projects that have been identified, one right here on this property actually, in Bethlehem, that we'd like to talk to property owners and Bethlehem Township about implementing. We've also been looking at stormwater basins in the township. There are at least 16 basins that we've identified in the Spruce Run and Mohawkaway Creek portion of Bethlehem Township. I have looked at 14 of those in the past, and we feel that at least 4 of those are appropriate for retrofit. And what that might entail is removing concrete low flow channels, converting turf grass to meadow, and the cost for those can range from, 25,000 to 150,000, depending on the size of the basin. And one of the things that I did notice this week that I thought was great is that you have a detention basin maintenance guide on your webpage. I was really, really pleased to see that. Residential stormwater management can be a great tool. We've done programs where we've offered rain garden rebates to residential properties where they have installed rain gardens. We also have a rain barrel rebate program we'll give them a rebate depending on the size of it. And then education programs. We have our river friendly programs. So these are important to let residents and also larger landowners know what they can do. The plan includes a section on roadway management. Some of this stuff is what is included again in your municipal stormwater permit. Some of it is taking that a step farther. So there are things like increasing street sweep improvements. So we'll be able to provide a map showing those recommendations. Most of the watershed does rely on septic systems for wastewater disposal. So really focusing in on education, letting people know how they should be treating their septic system and that they should be maintained. Recommended in the plan is the potential for, and I hate to use the word permit, but a registration system for septic systems. There are municipalities in New Jersey that have found that to be very successful in getting a higher level of maintenance for systems in their municipality. Agriculture is a land use that often gets the fingers pointed at it, and sometimes that's rightfully so, sometimes not so much. But there are a lot of practices that we can install that will help farmers better manage flow and pollutants on their properties. We have a partner employee with the Natural Resources Conservation Service who works directly with farmers to help them identify and then implement those practices. And the authority has an agricultural cost share program that helps farmers to fund those practices. A lot of these practices are prohibitively expensive for a farmer to install. So typically what our funding will do is then match the NRCS funding. And we also do have the ability to fund things directly without using the NRCS funding. Having our own partner employee, I think is going to become even more and more important as NRCS is kind of stretched really thin. John and I were in a meeting yesterday and we, talking with NRCS and hearing kind of what their funding is going to be in the next couple of years. They really don't have any engineering capacity, which is a little bit limiting on practices. So we'll be looking for some ways to work around that as well. In your MS4 permit requirements, obviously there are some wildlife feeding requirements for ordinances. Looking at education to go along with that is also going to be important. Things like deer management and reducing goose habitat will also be important to reducing both bacteria and nutrient loads into streams and ultimately into the reservoir. Monitoring and evaluation are going to be an important part of implementation. If we can't show our funders that things are working, then it's kind of hard to get additional funding. We'll be setting up a set of criteria that'll help us monitor our progress. Some of that will be water quality monitoring, stream assessments, things like that. But then also using things like the United States Geological Survey monitoring data to help us show water quality trends. I think it's tough for a lot of people to sometimes grasp, even though a lot of the area draining to Spruce Run Reservoir, a lot of people rely on their own private wells for water supply for their drinking water. But the things that we do to protect the streams flowing into the Spruce Run and ultimately the reservoir and public water supply are things that will also benefit private wells as well. Anything that we can do to prevent nutrients, sediment, bacteria from entering streams and entering both surface water and groundwater will benefit both private wells and also water supply. So our next steps, we're working to finalize the restoration plan. We're also working on developing a fact sheet for each municipality. The plan, I didn't bring my binder in with me. The plan is it's kind of big. And there's a lot of great information in there, but we don't expect most people to go through all that information. So what we're also trying to do is put together a fact sheet for each municipality that pulls out really the most important information and summarizes the implementation projects. We'll also be developing an implementation plan that kind of sets out and prioritizes all the projects that we'd like to do. In terms of what we're looking for from the municipalities at this point, is that these projects then also hopefully make it into your watershed improvement plan, which is due in another not quite 2 years to DEP, and to work with us to implementation to actually implement projects. The next round of DEP watershed restoration funding will focus on the Raritan Basin. So we'd like to have as many projects kind of teed up and ready to go when that happens, which might be this year, might be next year. We haven't really gotten a firm answer on that. We are looking at trying to pair some funding that the authority has from our source water protection fund, that we've designated to implementation in this watershed each year, potentially with some funding from the Highlands Council. And that's something once we have our implementation plan, what we'd like to do is sit county or municipality, but look at how we can kind of leverage that money. And then if the municipalities do have money that they can contribute as well, or in-kind services that they can contribute, how we can start getting some of these projects designed and then in the ground. And I think that's really all I'd like to say at this point. But if anyone has questions, we'd be happy to answer those.
I have a couple questions, Kathy.
Yes,
The water supply in the Spruce Run, where does that water go?
that's a great question. That's a great question. So, we release water from Spruce Run. We purveyors, such as New Jersey American Water, Middlesex Water Company, North Brunswick, New Brunswick, then take it out of the river and the Delaware and Raritan Canal, and they treat it and distribute it to customers. And we do serve just about 1.5 million customers out in the Raritan system.
Are any of those customers in Hunterdon County?
They are actually. There are portions of Hunterdon County that are served by New Jersey American Water Company. Yeah. But as I said, and that's where it's tough sometimes. And I know, since the Highlands Act was passed, 20 odd years ago, it's kind of been a discussion that, okay, most people up here rely on their own wells. So why should you worry about water supply for someone downstream? But really everything that we do to protect the water supply going into the reservoir is also going to benefit private wells.
The other question I have is you talked about a project that was done here in Bethlehem Township, maybe 20 years ago.
Yep.
Do you have any information on pre what the conditions were and then post what the impact is that you had?
I do actually. So that project was in Hoffman Park. And as I said, it was on the Union Township side of Hoffman Park. If you know the entrance off of Mecklen's Corner Road, kind of over toward the Union Township Municipal Building.
Yes.
If you go in that entrance and walk in on the road there, you'll walk right over the project. So that project we did using EPA funding actually, areas where the streams were impacted. In that case, the culvert under the road was impacting both water flow and fish passage. So we worked to put in a bottomless culvert, and then also expanded, essentially, I don't want to say expanded the floodplain. We modified the floodplain so that water had space to flow safely outside of the stream channel rather than just eroding the stream channel. And we also installed several in-stream structures to help slow down the water moving through the stream. And I would say we did do macroinvertebrate monitoring at that site. So macroinvertebrates are the little, we call them bugs, even though they're not really bugs, that live in the stream. And we did pre and post monitoring of of the macroinvertebrate community, at that site, and a couple other sites that we did stream restoration through that particular project.
And so what kind of impact did that have?
So-
10%?
You know what, I would have to go back and really look at the data to say how the actual impact on the macroinvertebrate community. What we can say visually is that stream is much more stable than it was.
Erosions.
And then from an erosion standpoint, we realized that the stream was actually jumping out of its channel and going down the road when we saw, just big cobble move down the road after storm events. The vegetation in there has grown really well. So, we do see that project as a success.
Good. And the last one for me is there an opportunity for us as municipalities to get any of that revenue from the water as the stewards that we are here? Can improve the water quality?
That's not quite my department. I would say so we sell the water to the water companies. The authority does not receive any tax dollars from the state of New Jersey. All of our funding comes from selling water to the water purveyors. The financial aspect of our operation is not quite my, I will say not my purview. Looking for funding to do projects is my purview. The authority does have a source water protection fund. It funds in part projects like this one. It will fund some of the implementation projects. Our source water protection fund has funded the land preservation that we've done. So for instance, properties such as Hendershot, help me here, Brian. Allmeyer, Hendershot, Van Light, Chandoa, Allmeyer. There are a bunch of properties that we co-own with Bethlehem, and source water protection funding was used to purchase those. So, there's a benefit to the municipalities from that perspective as well.
Great.
And while we have not been purchasing land for the last 10 or 12 years, it is something that we do hope to do again in the future. Yes,
Does the town of Clinton, is that a customer?
they are not. They have their own water system.
Do you know why they have shortages of water even though they're adjacent to the reservoir? They have no.
Well, they're not pulling from the reservoir. Yeah, no one pulls directly from the reservoir for water supply.
This might be just more curiosity than anything else. I mean, Spruce Run is low right now.
It is very low. 37%, I think, as of this morning. Yes.
So does that concentrate all of these problems with the algae? With it not being able to.
It certainly doesn't help. It certainly doesn't help, and because we're not getting rain, we're not getting dilution, as things, everything's just kind of sitting there right now. This time of year, you're not so worried about, in summertime when it's low. Yeah, people are watering lawns and things like that, but also when you have, the heat of the sun also on a more shallow water body, you're gonna see additional impacts just because you don't have the kind of the structure, and the depth to mitigate the heat from the sun, for instance,
The slide 8 to 9 minimum element watershed plan, is that the big binder that you're?
That's my big, yes.
So I mean, so you mentioned that there's a possibility of bullet pointing some of those things for us.
Yes.
So, the recommended actions to protect water quality and mitigation, hopefully, and then, as a committee, the education and outreach, and we have our environmental commission that would help us partner on that. So those are, just items I wanted to touch on and share. Then you mentioned that there's, a stewardship program for the 39 properties that.
Yes.
So
Yep.
what does that include? Is there anything municipalities could partner on or should we?
Absolutely. So, we do baseline monitoring on all the properties that we have an ownership interest in. Every 2 to 3 years, we try and visit each property. And then we also identify stewardship actions. So when we visit a property, once we've written up the report on it, and we provide that report to each of our co-owners. So that's something that you should see, on a kind of a routine basis. for the properties that we co-own. Ryan just came on board with us last year, and then one of our other staff also is becoming more involved in the stewardship activities. For a long time, we identify projects, but we haven't necessarily had the capacity to then take the next step and implement those projects. So that's something we're really gonna be trying to work a bit more on these next couple of years, is doing more of the actual implementation of the things that we see should be done, you know, whether it's invasive species removal, vegetation improvement, things like that. You know, I know we've talked to you, once we've talked to you, the Shenandoah property, we'd like to do meadow restoration, the Hendershot property, we'd like to do forest, you know, do tree plantings out there, and those are still on our to-do list.
Alright, so those are space projects or something we can talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shalice, you have another question?
Okay, I have another question.
Well, I'm gonna interrupt anyway. So do you partner with Sustainable New Jersey? Because I'm just looking at the rain gardens and the barrels.
Yep.
It's all kind of part of that program.
Yes,
I understand they are, might be a little bit dormant this year. 'cause
they are not so much dormant, but they're taking a year off from certifying municipalities in order to review and update the program,
Okay,
is how I understand it, yeah.
okay,
Yeah, so they're, and things that you're already working on under a particular standard, I believe will still be eligible for points once they get back up and running. I think they probably felt that they needed to focus on that, and when they're also trying to work with municipalities on reviewing all of their certification documentation, it's tough to kind of do both at the same time, so.
so we'll look for a little bit more next year.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm gonna actually about that, so you know, you had mentioned, so the green infrastructure projects here.
Mhm.
It's like this complex is
Yeah.
one with the area, so, you know, one of the simple things we're doing is we replaced the roof on this building this year, and then we're enhancing the gutter system. So like, are there guidelines or things that you could share with us as far as?
So, and Ryan, help me remember here, I think all of your gutters go into the ground off of this building?
They're
Uh,
they're not hooked to anything.
They're not, so they're just going out, so, yeah, so what we can do, you wanna make sure that they're flowing preferably over vegetation. And then what we can look at doing too is, are there areas that are appropriate for rain gardens, you know, to accept that water?
But I mean,
As well,
we're
yeah.
actually, yeah, the gutters are 4 inch, we're looking at a 6 inch with less downspouts
Mhm.
flow, so we direct that flow
A
appropriately.
little bit, yeah, and that's something, you know, at some point, we can come and take a look at in daylight and discuss that more.
Are there other more comprehensive pieces to these projects?
A lot of them, you know, honestly, a lot of what Rutgers recommended for the green infrastructure projects are rain gardens. They recommended a lot of pervious pavement, which honestly, I think is pretty expensive, and not necessarily the most cost efficient, but you know, it is a tool in the toolbox. You know, rain gardens, or even in a lot of areas, even just making sure that runoff is going through a vegetated area, even if it's lawn, before it hits a stream, you know, or before it goes into a storm drain. It is a great thing, you know, that gives it a chance for some water to percolate back into the ground and some pollutants to be filtered out.
Then, last question so far, so you mentioned that there's a cost share program potentially for agricultural
We
projects.
do have that, yes, we've been doing that for 10 years now.
And
more than 10 years.
how would, local farms apply for that?
So local, reach out to me. If you know someone that's interested right now, I've got money that I need to spend in the next 6 months, and I'd love to find some farmers in the Spruce Run and Mohawkaway watershed to spend this money. But then we also have money in general out of the Source Water Protection Fund that we can, cost share farmers. As I said, it can either match NRCS money, or it can be used as a standalone as well. But you know, if you have anyone that's interested, have them reach out to me and I'll put them in touch with our partner employee who's in the Frenchtown office of NRCS.
Any questions? A motion to open the phone?
Make a motion to open the public?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Swab,
Take a look
please.
through the Wilder 424 Charlestown Road. So can you just say what those cost share for the ag was? Because I,
Sure, so for agriculture, it's a cost share program, then we have a specified list of practices that benefit water quality. So, you know, things like, manure storage facilities, groundwaterways, oddly enough, even something like roofs and gutters, because they help to keep water clean, so keeping water that's running off a roof from running into a barnyard where it's gonna pick up manure and other pollutants. So typically what our funding does is it matches the NRCS funding. And we try and get farmers closer to 80 to 90, it is an addition on top of the NRCS Monday. We are funding some projects straight out right now, repairing buffer projects in particular, rather than going through the NRCS funding as well.
So, and you said that you have the money right now, so how
Yep.
do we get that information to the farmers in town?
We can get you a postcard that you can put on the website. If you'd like, if Dan's got something, our ag specialist, that we can get to you. And if you've got anyone particular in mind, have them reach out to us, or you can let us know who they are, and Dan can reach out to them.
Yeah, I honestly don't know how you reach out to particular farmers.
Dan's actually done some going door to door in the watershed, believe it or not, going out and doing some recon. So,
Well, we can brainstorm on that, but it sounds like we should act on it, because.
so right now we have money from DEP that's going to expire July 1st that I'd really like to spend, and then, we do have future money as well.
Mhm.
But that one is specific to this watershed.
So if you farms that were aware, I was planning just the outreach, because we just didn't know for being here, but the postcard would be helpful too.
Yeah.
Do they have to have a farm record? 'Cause
Um,
I know like
If
with
they-
NRCS certain practices, you don't necessarily have to be a farmer to qualify.
right, for NRCS money, there are different requirements. For us, we've got a little more leeway, a little more flexibility.
They're just somewhat a landowner with
A landowner with,
stream frontage, for example.
well, yes, so we have different types of funding. So we have agricultural funding, and then we also have just kind of general watershed implementation funding.
So with the stewardship program, where if you identify particular projects or properties in our town, and you'll let us know, because maybe we can invoke the Boy Scouts and Girl
Absolutely.
Scouts.
Yep.
and, environmental commission to do tree planting, invasive removal or whatever like that.
Yep, so what we'll do is I'm sorry, I forgot to bring the draft fact sheet with me, tonight. On the fact sheets, we'll list all the projects that we've identified within the municipality, so that you have that, in one summarized spot. So that'll include stormwater basins that we've identified for retrofit, potential green infrastructure projects. If we've identified specific agricultural areas for implementation, repairing buffer improvement, stewardship of preserved properties, and then also a list of properties that we would recommend for preservation.
So that fact sheet, what's the time frame? And not to put you on the
No,
spot.
that's,
It's good to have a deadline.
it's a good deadline, yes. So my goal is to have the plan completed by the end of February. And if nothing else pops its head up and demands my attention, that might actually happen. And then Ryan and I will be putting those fact sheets together.
And with the preserved properties, I mean, it can be two ways, right? The municipality could come to us and they have a
Absolutely.
parcel that might be going up for sale, and you guys want some help
Mhm.
funding the preservation of it.
Yeah, and as
That's a good
you
conversation,
probably
too.
know, although we haven't been purchasing property for the last several years, we still have been supporting our partners. Whether it's with soft costs or things like that, or preservation.
Yeah, so the time for that fact sheet, which is gonna list very specific, do this, do
Yeah.
that, we recommend this, we recommend that. Will that be a time frame that some of I don't remember the next MS4 requirements, will that be
Mhm.
able to be time-wise helpful to? Because I think Kathy was saying there might be some, funding available
Mhm.
to do certain things for some of the deliverables. How do you think that might be able to work time-wise and logistically?
I'll turn to Irene, a lot of things, like the storm, like the watershed impact, has already been turned in.
Right, so your watershed inventory report was due at the end of 2025. Your, what do they call the second phase? Your watershed assessment report is due at the end of this year. And then your watershed improvement plan at the end of 2027. So, your watershed assessment report will start identifying projects.
We're further ahead.
Oh, that's
I
great.
believe our watershed improvement plan is already completed.
Oh,
Are they all up on the web?
No.
No, so that it will be posted up there, right? So. I won't be
yeah, if we
talking
could
about-
get a copy of that, that would be extremely helpful.
Well, I think once it gets on the stormwater site, you can go on. to-
Yes, because we can just reference that in the restoration plan.
So it's like you do work, we do work and kind of dovetail.
Yep.
That's the way I'm envisioning it, but time-wise, it has to.
Yes,
Work out too, so, and I was gonna say one other thing, but I lost my train of thought already.
We are ready to assist with the implementation.
yes,
So as quickly as we can put together the design of some of these projects, and if there's willingness, then.
yeah. And that's where I said too, we've dedicated money on a yearly basis out of our source water protection fund toward implementation of this restoration plan. And we've been talking to the Highlands Council about how we might be able to leverage some of their funding with that as well.
Could some of the funding, so I was just looking through, so we also hosted a MS4 stormwater training session.
Mhm.
Our engineer took the lead between Kingwood, Union, Alexandria, so four townships, and all the DPW came together.
That is great to
For
know.
training. So they've already completed that. I've been looking at a program that tracks capital assets within the township,
Mhm.
stormwater, so it helps us perform and keep the records that we're supposed to for the drainage systems and the inspections. Would there be funding to implement software to do that? Would that be something that we were?
I would say probably not from us. I don't know if Highlands Council funding would cover that or not.
We're manually recording things now.
Yeah, and I'm
Which
kind of,
works for our team.
yeah,
But we want to have continuity and plan for the future.
yeah, and I wonder if DEP has something in the works for that. I am sure there's,
Not to be flipped, DEP probably, the stormwater authority is probably their plan to pay for that.
well, maybe, yeah. I'm sure there's software out there that does that.
Yeah, we've been looking at.
Okay.
Potential, and same thing, the same towns that we're looking at, this. Software, like they were in Edison, and a lot of the towns that you were mentioning, where they pull water from Brunswick.
Mhm.
And, but so it's cost prohibitive typically for towns like ours.
Right,
But we were talking to them that they were willing to pilot it with us and these four municipalities we did the training with. And maybe spread the cost out across us and be able to do that. Like I said, looking for that continuity in the future of our DPW recording.
It's further thought. You have anything else?
What, yeah, one more thing. So, the stormwater training that was mentioned at the planning board, that's gonna be open to, I think Lou said he was gonna put the link on the website. Would that count?
Stormwater days.
Would that count as part of education for their plan as well as ours?
It's up now, by the way.
Thank you. So we have a requirement for our planning board, but we're making it available to all residents through our website.
that's terrific, yeah. Yeah, and if you identify things like that you think we might be able to help with, I know Suzanne's connected with Tracy Gordon at Raritan Headwaters Association as well. And they're gonna be able to help you on the education side of it as well, but let us know if there's something you think we might be able to help with.
Or that you could get credits for it.
Well, yeah, because, for us, it's not so much getting credit, but for us, it's helping you get credit toward your MS4. And for us, it's improving water quality is where we want to see the benefit, so.
Tracy's gonna be here in April for the rain garden, presentation, or
Terrific.
the workshop, I should say, presentation.
That's great.
So April.
The second, it's the second meeting of
It's the
that.
one right before cleanup day, or whatever it's, the tree giveaway.
So it was
April 16. Yeah, April 16th.
Spur two thoughts for me again. When you acquire land, who holds the conservation easement?
That's a great question. It varies. In some cases, we actually don't hold too many easements. I think we have one easement.
Riley, I think.
Riley, I think that might be the only easement. We do hold 4 farmland easements, but in general, we purchase outright. And so then, depending on the property, the ownership is split, for instance, between us and Bethlehem Township. For instance, on the properties that I mentioned before. And then there's a maintenance and management agreement that specifies who's responsible for management of the property.
And who enforces that?
The management agreement,
Yeah.
kind of we do. Or if, for instance, Bethlehem has the responsibility, then it's their responsibility to do that.
That's why I raised the question about revenue, right? All this time and money. So
Absolutely, yep.
if we're gonna protect that water, I think everybody's in it together. Where we have the land base here and the users are somewhere. I think it was a flaw on the original Highlands, which I was involved with, and no dedicated funding for these programs, stormwater, non-point source pollution, ag issues. I think there really should be a coming together to look at the stewards of land and then the users of that resource, that there's some kind of sharing mechanism.
And I'm gonna suggest you nudge Ben Spinelli at Highlands Council about that, because he's positioned to, they're in a different position than we are, in terms of that. They obviously have a little more regulatory power, we are a non-regulatory unit. But I also think Ben is thinking that way already.
Discussions.
Any other public comment on this topic?
Barbara Colton, 507 Charleston Road. My question is, when you fund a project, do you give it a timeline? And what tools do you have to implement that the project is correctly?
Great question. So, for instance, I'm just gonna use the stormwater basin retrofit as an example. Depending on how the funding flows, it might be that Bethlehem Township gets funding from DEP to do a stormwater retrofit, and then you work either with your township engineer to do the design, and to hire a contractor and implement the project. And your township engineer would oversee it, or you hire an external engineer to do that. So we worked with, just as an example, we worked with Franklin Township in Somerset County, and we retrofitted 5 stormwater basins. We received money from the DEP to do these projects. So we did the oversight. We hired the design engineer, and then we hired the contractor to actually do the work. So that's one way to do it. A repairing buffer improvement project, a tree planting project, again, it kind of depends on who the funding's flowing to. If the funding's flowing to us, then we would take responsibility for developing the plan, whether it's in-house or hiring an external expert to do that. If the money's flowing to Bethlehem Township, then it would be your responsibility to hire someone to do that plan and implement the project. And
In a timely fashion.
in a timely fashion, yep. Yeah.
Who determines the timing?
So when you put together a funding application, for instance, usually put together a timeline for a project. So again, whoever the funding is coming through or coming from, whoever's your project manager is probably a good way to phrase it. So if Bethlehem's receiving the funding, then Bethlehem is the project manager. If we're receiving the funding, then we're the project manager, and it's our responsibility to keep things moving.
Any other public comment? Motion to close public comment?
Make a motion to close public comment.
Second?
Barry?
Aye.
Thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
having us tonight. I'm gonna leave a couple of cards on the table. And if anyone needs a copy of the presentation, let me know. We can send it to you in a PDF. And the bigger ones, yes, sorry. And we look forward to talking with you more.
I think it's great. We're having a lot of conversation, and we continue to keep the communication open on projects
Absolutely.
and bullet points, we keep up with Robert working together.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, nice dovetail report, municipal engineer, Irene, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add, or if there are any updates,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and committee, and it was really great to hear Kathy and Ryan's presentation because MS4 and the stormwater permit is definitely on our list for updates tonight. So yeah, we can jump right in. But thanks. Yeah, I'm filling in for Tom tonight. As you all know, he had a conflict, so I'm happy to provide updates. I worked directly with him on all of Bethlehem's projects, so let's go. First, I just wanted to start off with some updates on the NJDOT sponsored road construction projects. We've been working for a few months now to close out and secure final grant reimbursement for several of the local aid projects, historic projects. So this past month in December, we confirmed with DOT that projects are closed out for the Iron Bridge Section 1 improvement project, the Person Road improvement project, and the Williver Road improvement project. So they're finalized in the DOT's system, and CFO Mooney confirmed for us that the township has received reimbursement checks from the state for those 3 projects. So that's good news. And then, yeah, I'll move right on to the NJDEP MS4 permit compliance front. We had 2 substantial permit compliance items finalized and submitted in December, just about a month ago now. First was the MS4 infrastructure map data was finalized and submitted. That's something we've been working hard on with the DPW and engineers in our office. So it's good to have that submitted to the DEP on time. And the second is the Watershed Improvement Plan Phase 1 inventory report. And Kathy mentioned that briefly in her presentation, but the full Watershed Improvement Plan is made up of 3 phases, each with sequential deadlines that are required through the 5-year permit cycle. So this inventory report was due at the end of last year, and it essentially summarizes everything that's going on stormwater-wise in the township. So we have that report sent into DEP. They are reviewing it at the moment. We can talk about making it public and at what point we want to do that. We might want to wait a little longer for DEP, sign off on that document. So we can talk about that. And the next steps with the Watershed Improvement Plan is the second phase, the assessment report. And this is the phase where we evaluate and identify very specific infrastructure and improvement projects that we could implement in the township to improve water quality. And so it really segues really nicely with what Kathy and Ryan just presented. And I know we'll be working closely with them to understand the projects that they have in mind and how that helps their goals and also aligns with how we can make compliance standards line up for the township. So that report, the Phase 2 assessment report, is due December 31st of this year. So I was happy to hear that the implementation timeframe for the fact sheet, the municipal specific fact sheet, it sounds like that will really segue nicely with some of the work that needs to be done for that report. So Van Cleef, we're in the process at the moment to put together a scope for the work that needs to be done on the township side and a budget for that effort. So then my last update, Mayor Muir already beat me to it. Tom Decker hosted a DPW employee education training session last month to update the public works team on stormwater compliance issues. And that's important because it is one of the compliance checklist items for the Tier A permit. So that was a good thing to get done and great to be able to do it jointly with the neighboring towns as well. So those are my updates, and happy to answer any questions.
Sorry, we still have a report until the deputy better knows I'm good at stealing reports.
Yes.
Yeah. Any questions from the committee? A motion open to public?
Make a motion open to public.
Second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Jim Walden for 24 Charlestown Road. So, for the, all these reports that have to be done, is a separate report have to be done for each watershed, or is it one report for both watersheds?
Yes.
Is it okay if I answer, Mr. Mayor, or do you?
I'm actually asking you.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's hard for me to see who's looking at who here. Yes, no, happy to answer that. The township is responsible for the township, each individual township is responsible for its own ultimate watershed improvement plan and these subsequent phase reports that are due. However, because watershed boundaries don't align with municipal boundaries, as we all know, it does make sense to bring in regional ideas and regional plans. So I think your initial question was really about which watersheds Bethlehem, encompasses in Bethlehem. And so, yes, what they just reported on is like half of the township.
Right, we're in the Musconetcong and the Spruce Run watersheds, the Raritan watershed. So that was my question. So do you do one report for the Spruce Run one and one report for the Musconetcong one?
Okay, no, the municipal report will combine, it'll be for the municipality. So it will combine initiatives from both watersheds.
So then my question then, if it's for both, and we know how the Spruce Run is helping, can possibly help out, how does that work from the Musconetcong side?
We talked to their leadership, maybe we can invite them in as well, but we talked to their leadership.
Yeah, I think their approach seems different than what,
Yeah, I think a lot of this is directed, not necessarily, we partner with the watershed and there should be sharing of information. But if we're doing best practices, like, I'm not sure what would be different to protect the Musconetcong, the Raritan. And so it's up to the engineer to develop those from as she shared, a regional standpoint.
So the Musconetcong, if I'm remembering correctly, their protection plan was if I could be wrong, focused on the septic systems, if I'm remembering.
They couldn't seem to do their current focus.
Yeah, and theirs is on the algae blooms and the Spruce Run. Both can be helpful, so it's up to our engineer to take in input from both of the watershed groups.
Correct, I think shared best practices to protect those septics would protect Spruce Run. So it's almost the same techniques.
Well, some of it's the same, some of it overlaps, some of it doesn't overlap, because Musconetcong doesn't care about algae blooms the same way that Spruce Run does.
I think the same techniques to improve septic quality would help reduce the algae.
Okay, true. I was just curious how, so it is one report for both watersheds.
We do sit with Musconetcong, myself, Deputy Mayor, Steve DiLorenzo from the planning board. We all represent, and from primary to tertiary, we sit on the River Management Council.
Right, that's for Musconetcong.
For Musconetcong, so those meetings are every other month, and we participate and have the information to report. So I said, there's sharing of information ongoing. Water Authority is a little bit different on how we interact, because they don't have a council.
Right, they're not a nonprofit like the.
Yeah, but we talk to them on a regular basis.
But the Raritan Headwaters is a nonprofit,
Correct.
so they're your analogous. And so anything that you feel like Raritan Headwaters could do, then we could, Tracy, I've been working with her, so that helps. I'm kind of, for me, I'm focusing on the Spruce Run side of things. I'm really not paying attention to the Musconetcong side of things, but. Okay,
Yeah, it's a little like a puzzle putting it together. Yep.
Yeah.
Any public comment on this stuff? Motion to close?
Make a motion to close.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Erin. Appreciate you joining us this evening and sharing
Thank you.
questions.
Thank you. Good night.
Other things to do, please, feel free to log off.
No, I will, unless you have something specific for me to sit for, but
Great.
okay. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Before public safety officials, there are none in the audience this evening. I'll share our next meeting, February 2nd, will be when our first responders all join us for their annual presentations. So we'll be heavy in those reports in a few weeks. There is no old business, there is no new business to address, so report of municipal tax collector. There's a monthly cash report that was emailed to us. Report of animal control official, that was the end of the year report for December 2025 email. Report of the environmental commission, was also emailed to us dated December 16th. Which brings us to the report of township attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did receive a lawsuit this week filed by Barbara Cochran, Guy Cintron, the Bethlehem Township Democratic Committee, and Hunterdon County Democratic Committee against Bethlehem Township Mayor Muir, the Bethlehem Township Committee. This is related to the peddling and soliciting ordinance. We had revisited this ordinance a couple of months ago and looking to recover some costs related to background checks for solicitation. This action talks about a allegation that the township has required political canvassing to submit for the permit. However, that's completely incorrect. If you review our ordinance, the peddling and solicitation ordinance under chapter 115, under 115-5B, it provides for exemptions. It indicates that a person soliciting or a vote for any political candidate or program as provided by 115-16 is exempt. Further down in the ordinance, it references exactly what permitting is required for the different types of soliciting, canvassing. Of course, soliciting is, your solar guys or your roofing guys or your landscapers typically, which does require a permit, a background check. But under canvassing, which is under subsection B2, it states, open quote, canvassing. Persons or organizations are permitted to canvass as defined by 115-16A without registering with the township, close quote. So I spoke with the plaintiff's attorney today. I showed him the ordinance and specifically referencing that particular language that doesn't require any application for canvassing. So he was obviously a little sheepish, having not done the basic research of reading the ordinance. And I advised him that, we're gonna look at clarifying this or reaffirming in the exemption category that canvassing doesn't require registration, which is consistent with some case law. What's really disappointing is I had sent a pretty detailed letter on December 23rd and stated, again, there was some errors obviously in the interpretation. And then I had said, I agree based upon the case law that there should be no permit applications for charitable political solicitation permits, and I will recommend that the ordinance be clarified. Yet 5 days later, we get a lawsuit. So my intent is to give the plaintiffs in this case one more opportunity to withdraw their claims that are completely frivolous and violative of the court rules. Because the ordinance, what they're seeking in the ordinance is exactly what the ordinance says. So we're going to give an opportunity for the plaintiffs to reconsider if they want to litigate this. Otherwise, we're going to be moving for sanctions, legal fees, and to recoup the township's losses related to this frivolous litigation.
Thank you for that update. Anything else to?
No, that's all.
Thank you very much. On to the report of health and safety coordinator, Mr. Lindsay.
Nothing at this time. I'll be working on scheduling a safety meeting once I reach out to our township insurance rep.
Excellent, thank you. Report of finance coordinator, that's myself. This is a good stealing reports. I'm going to bring up budget things now rather than every administrators. What's up? We've been working on our budgets, they were all submitted to the end of the year, and now we're in the process of reviewing them with department heads. Sitting and spending some time, and then, of course, we host 2 public budget meetings, so that everybody can see and have the utmost in transparency in how we fund, and use taxpayer dollars. So, in the past, now we have a relatively new makeup, Mr. Cotton, last year was your first year, this as well, we used to do them early in the morning, which I love, dragging everybody here, like 7:30 in the morning, bring donuts, and we move on. But in the past, we've actually done, the past few years, we just host them at 6 o'clock, before the Township Committee meeting, so if we can, if 6 o'clock is amenable, and then people can be here at 6 o'clock. Mr. Wenzel, I know sometimes it's a challenge, for you, but it would be before the next 2 meetings, or would it be the second meeting in February, the first meeting in March?
I would prefer the February 19th meeting, the second meeting in March.
So that would be,
Meeting in February.
okay, so that would be, February 19th, with a 6 o'clock public budget meeting, and March 5th, with a 6 o'clock public budget meeting. Is that amenable to the other committee members?
It's fun.
Yes.
Mr. Clay?
Yes.
Mr. Lancy? Maybe?
Just checking my schedule, but I think it should be okay, those 2 dates. Yes,
Yeah.
19th and 5th, yes.
Yes. Okay. That's the only finance update currently. Report of land use coordinator, Mr. Clay, your first planning board.
We had our first planning board meeting, basically it was just a reorganization meeting. And we're getting ready to start working, next Monday, which is next Monday, 2 months.
2 Mondays. This is one of those tough weeks where you're planning board and township meetings
Yes.
together. Yes.
Mess me up.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
no, I can forget that. I almost forgot myself. Like, usually we get the nice, off the layout, but, thank you. When I said first meeting, your first meeting representing the township committee.
Yes.
You've been on the planning board for some time. A report of governing body members, again, Mr. Clay,
Nothing else?
Mr. Cotton,
Nothing to report.
Mr. Lindsay.
Nothing to report.
Ms. Nelson.
Probably not the greatest of interest to everybody in the public, but I would like to thank, Mr. Coletti's help. We met with am I stealing your report as well? We met with, our IT provider. We had a very good in-depth planning session of 2025 was a tough year up here. For our technology services, a lot of the equipment had aged out. Windows 11 upgrades caused problems. So we went through all of the issues, came up with a detailed plan, and maybe looking to do some improvements over the course of 2026.
Excellent, thank you. I know it's a rather long meeting. You guys,
2.5 hours.
Yeah, we closed the place.
Yeah.
It was well worth it though. I mean, for me, it was good to see what the system is and what the problems were, so I was very grateful to be part of it.
thank you. We appreciate both of you have a great technology background.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Great initiative.
That's key, still leaning on the skills that we each bring to make the town better. So report down to administrator.
The only thing I had is going off with Judy, we did have some server issues. Last week, end of last week, and the beginning of this week, we knew our server was going, we really didn't expect it to go. It went.
Yeah, it's gone.
So
Completely gone.
we are on the cloud now. We're still trying, we can only recover up to December 18th, that was our last backup. So now, yesterday afternoon, I was able to get into my software. So now I have to recreate. Yeah. So.
It's probably you and tax for the most.
Not tax because tax is VRT.
Oh, that's right, sorry. Okay.
So tax is not impacted at all, so it's just myself and him.
But because it was December, Monica really had inputted, she rolled it here over, but that was.
Just to do that again.
I'm not sure. I don't know how that's gonna impact her. But for that, we are on the cloud, we are working to get our documents, with our documents. So I think Chris has been affected by that more than me as far as that goes, but,
Is there a time? For that to be?
so our IT company has, hoping it would have been today, but hopefully tomorrow.
Are they just moving the information off the drives up into the cloud, or are they reorganizing it to a SharePoint or something like that?
I think they were thinking of share.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
SharePoint's pretty nice.
Yeah, and they are mapping.
They are mapping it. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if it was gonna be a two-stage approach.
You're talking about one of the technical, did you don't know your language?
Yeah, we're happy to have the skill.
Team call today.
Thank you. Anything else then?
No.
Report of mayor, I'm gonna begin, just want to recognize, fortunate, losses, so, Colonel Callahan had served, many years in the state police, most recently as, the head of, internal state to the state police, he's retiring in December of 2025. And, this past week, he lost his wife to a long battle of cancer. I just wanted to recognize and share our condolences as a township. Colonel was a great friend to Bethlehem Township, supporting us as a state police town. And we wanted to get recognized and share our condolences to the Colonel. Also, a local hero, Robert Bob Gibson. Many know him as Gibby. Hampton Borough is a longtime Hampton Borough mayor, but also the fire chief for many, many years. I believe he's considered almost active until he was 98 years old on the fire department. He passed at 102 years old. He was also a World War II veteran. Was there on beaches in Normandy and returned to Normandy on commemorative trips until he was 100 years old. So he was definitely a hero to Hampton, but also to Bethlehem Township for his service to the fire company and our country as a whole. His services are this Saturday morning. And then just kind of an update since we were on watershed, Muscatine watershed, Krista Reeves, the current executive director, attended our planning board meeting to talk about carbon canopy restoration of trees in the park. And so those will be planted in coordination with our DPW closer to the river and along the walking paths, the hiking trails. But coincidentally, at the same time, we had Mr. Wiesner had come in a few years ago at this point. His nonprofit is now recognized and approved by the IRS. He's ready to go and also wants to participate in carbon canopy restoration, but in a little bit more of a visible manner in the upper portion of the park. So he's looking to plant, I believe, at least 500 trees at no cost to the township with a maintenance plan, including mulching around them for survival. So we're working with Mr. Wiesner as well. He's working with a local nursery to choose trees. And also we'll be working with DPW because we have ongoing maintenance issues with mowing and care and how we get around some of these. I believe part of it is he's planting some fruit trees, which will be very cool and interesting. And so we're excited to have all that activity at the park. I have nothing else further. And I'll open for public comment.
Make that motion?
That's second. All in favor? Aye. Additional comment?
Regarding cleanup day, can you remind me, does it have scrap metal also separate from just throwing in the?
You can bring scrap metal. There is scrap metal. I think we still we collect scrap metal normally?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's.
Yeah, that's why I want to know if I should wait or,
No.
because I don't
You've
know.
been bringing it anytime, there's been there.
There is, okay, haven't been here in a long time. And will there be a clothing drive missing?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any public comments, questions? No. Motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
There being
Aye.
no items for executive session, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?